Hi, I'm Nate,
I'm Noah.
and welcome back to another chat episode of Talking Lion. We just released a new song called Lonely in LA with our friend Sophia Gripari, so we figured, as we do, why not talk about how this song came to be? In this episode, we call Sophia and reflect on how this song has evolved since the beginning of quarantine. It was originally written as a post-breakup song, but since the lockdowns in LA, being lonely in LA has taken on a whole new meaning. So we hope you enjoy this episode, and we hope you stream Lonely in LA, which is out now everywhere. And if you like this podcast and want to support it, you can check us out on patreon.com/talkinglion. So,
Without further ado,
This is Talking Lion.
well, hey.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. As I was saying, you're our second person to be on for a second time on Talking Lion.
That is sick. I'm honored.
Last week was our episode. There was quite a lot of time between the last episode and this episode, but the people already got to know you, so now we get to talk about our song,
Hell yes.
Child That's in the World,
Our song,
Lonely
baby.
in LA. A little song.
Lonely in LA.
It's crazy. I don't know. I think about the timeline of it, the fact that we were at school together, our mutual friends, all that stuff, and how it led into this collaboration, but also how this song has evolved from a meaning standpoint. Like when we wrote it,
Absolutely.
I was lamenting over a breakup essentially.
Right.
And now it's like everybody's lonely in LA.
right.
Oh god, it didn't age well. Or
If
it
anything,
aged very well.
it definitely aged is what happened,
Gosh. No, it must have been our first session. The three of us, actually. It
After-
was just our first session, the three of us.
Yeah. I mean, we had done the camp together.
Right.
But this
forget
was our
when
first
this was,
session
but-
outside of the camp. Our first,
Right.
we're going to have it in the calendar, come by.
Right.
But you were out for,
Yeah, I was trying to remember because the thing I remember about the session was I remember walking into a finished chorus, and I don't remember what it was that I had to do. I don't remember what it was that I had to do beforehand, but I remember coming in late.
I had texted Nate saying, "What time do you want me?" And Nate had said, "I don't know, come like 12:30." So I show up and you're like, "Oh, by the way, Noah's out. He's at lunch with his mum." And I was like,
That's
oh
what it-
yeah,
that's
your
what
mom was
it
in
was.
town. Yeah.
oh, okay. And obviously you were producing that session. So I was like, interesting. And that's what was so fun about this track was that it had been so long since I sat down to write just at a piano or just at a guitar, which is obviously what I used to do almost entirely. So you would just like sit at the piano, like, let's just start. And I was like, oh, okay.
What was funny, I remember you being kind of so, perplexed about it. When Noah was back in Boston, for the beginning of my quote unquote LA songwriting career,
Right.
I just had a piano, and then whatever I would do in that session, I would send to Noah. I was doing producerless sessions
Right.
for almost a year. And even when Noah and I do write with people, usually we start at the piano downstairs. Noah grabs a guitar, or one of us just isn't playing anything. We start at the piano, and then when we're like, oh, the song is good, we go upstairs.
I mean, yeah, it's the classic rule. Like if your song works just with a piano or just a guitar and it's equally as good, then you've got something worth keeping.
Yeah.
But that was why I wasn't so when Noah was like, oh, I'm going to be a little bit late, I was like, yeah, I don't.
It doesn't matter.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. We're going to start in the same place.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that was an anomaly.
Yeah, I hadn't done it in such a long time like that it was just like a readjustment, but it was cool. And it kind of made me focus on, just that chorus, which is why I think we got that chorus so quickly.
Well, and it was also, it's a very lyrically driven song.
Yeah.
But I think the other sort of, magic of that session was that it started as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, we were talking about breakups, but it was also, we were calling back to a conversation. We were hanging out in a group a lot. We were going out to bars
Dancing
and
on
everything.
Wednesdays.
Yeah, we would go dancing on Wednesdays. And, we would hang out in this group. But I remember you and I would oftentimes get into the conversations because we hung out with couples. We
Right.
hung out with Alex and Eden. We were hanging
Right.
out with these couples and sort of talking about how it looks better to be in LA with a couple. And I think I told you, I'm like, I have a theory. I'm like, Sophia, I have a theory that LA was designed for couples.
Absolutely.
I was like, all these shows, even driving, I'm like, traffic is better when there's somebody,
Next to you. Right.
next to you. And that's why, LA is so sinister so sinisterly a couple town. Like I was like spewing my conspiracy theory, and then sort of jokingly was like, the 101 just ain't as fun without you sitting shotgun.
The 101 just ain't as fun without you sitting shotgun.
And we're like, that's hilarious. No way we're doing that. And then you're like,
Bars and echo bars don't feel the same.
It was fun. It kind of just like once, I think it took us a while. Actually, it took me a few days after the session to figure out if I thought it was dumb.
Right.
I was like, I think I went to someone's birthday that evening, or no, the next day I went to someone's birthday, and I was telling them, I was like, I think we wrote a really cool chorus, but it also could be really stupid.
it could be dumb. Yeah.
So it took me a few days to figure out if like where it sat with me.
Well, I
love that
vowed to
chorus.
not write an LA song. Like I vowed, I'm not going to be one of those songwriters who's like talking about LA. But there was something, I guess I had this conspiracy theory, that I had to get off my chest.
I feel like a lot of those LA, songs can be kind of tacky or kind of, I don't know, that there's something that just doesn't feel great about those kind of songs. But I feel like ours is just like,
Well, it's got a beating heart to it. Like, it's not just like LA for the sake of LA. Like, LA is the metaphor, and you guys definitely wrote to that metaphor and in a way that started as a joke. But like, the song didn't end up a joke. It's not a joke song.
No, absolutely.
It's a song that has a real feeling behind it.
Well, if anything, the verses also don't necessarily are sort of agnostic. They're LA agnostic.
I think that's really important.
LA agnostic.
Well, especially like I think my favorite lyric of the verse is, I've gone on 50 fucking first dates.
Right?
I've gone on 50 fucking first dates, and I gotta say I'm getting pretty tired of them.
Because one, I love that movie. And I love just throwing in like little movie references into songs. But on the other side, it's like,
It also just kind of, that line just basically speaks to how tiring it gets. Like this whole, LA is a tiring place to be.
Exhausting. It's the place where you accidentally spend $150 on a first date that you didn't like being on.
Well, I think that's the other thing, is that dating is exhausting, and being alone in a city that you used to be with someone in is also exhausting. And that's a universal feeling. Like whether it's Boston or New York or Rome, like when you have a ghost haunting your city, like that's something that everyone can kind of relate to.
Or a city that was only really vibrant. Like I've been in LA now for almost 3 years, and I like it plenty, but I don't think I loved LA quite as much as like seeing it through my ex's eyes when she came to visit. Right. Because she had never been, and like, so I could be like, I know Universal, like in my head, it's like Universal Studios is like tackier. I've been to the Griffith Wow.
You got this.
I've been to the Griffith Observatory like a dozen times, but there was something about like seeing that through somebody's eyes who had never seen that before. Yeah. That was like, oh, right. Like, obviously this place is just so magical, but like only when it's La La Land. Right. Only when it's like you're dancing with someone else, you know? And I really liked that the song captured that. And then of course Noah comes back and
I'm just like, well, you guys got a chorus. That sounds good to me. Like I was just like, cool. That's like half the work already done.
Yeah.
Was there a lyric that resonated with you?
I would say a few of them, but for me, verse 2 hits pretty hard.
I heard this song, I wanna show you. It's kinda sad, but I think that you'd like it a lot. I hate pretending I don't know you and telling other people that I'm over you when I'm not.
It's like you have that one person who you send songs to and they send songs to you, and it's kind of, you know exactly what kind of songs they'll like, and suddenly, that person's not there anymore, and you hear a song and you're like, oh, can't send this to them anymore. Like, but also I don't necessarily want to listen to this song again because it's, brings
it's kind of
back.
sad, but I think that you like it a lot.
And even the second part of the verse.
I hate pretending I don't know you.
I hate pretending I don't.
Yeah,
right.
That's my favorite lyric.
Yeah.
That hurts.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like our collective lack of memory of the session comes from a smoothness in the session. Like I feel like the song poured out.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if we struggled with specific lines, we would have remembered.
Actually, we did kind of struggle with verse 2. I remember because I got like a fat migraine. And
oh right, I do remember that.
I was really struggling. I was like, I've got to go home, but that was rush hour, and it would have taken me fucking like an hour to get home.
Right.
So I was like, okay, let's push through. Let's finish this song because who knows when we're both gonna have like a free day.
Right.
To finish it.
Hey, I
So
give
let's-
everybody headaches in sessions. That's my whole thing. You know.
It was just like, while we're in the same place and while we're on this vibe, let's just really try and get this verse. And I'm so glad we did, because that verse, I love that verse.
Well, what I like about it too is there's the duplicity to it, because it's like, you know, for anybody, I got the song I want to show you, but we're also writing songs, and I feel like when you're seeing somebody, half the fun, I mean, you know, I don't know if half's the right number, but half the fun is just showing, you know, oh, I wrote a song today. I want to know what you think. Like, so for me, it was like, it was the two meanings of like losing a sort of song sharer, but also like a confidant for like
For your own stuff.
V1 demos. you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
But yeah, my other sort of distinctive memory is when we actually like were in the studio, like we graduated up to the studio, and we, you know, Noah designed this like really cool kind of minimal track. And we were throwing a party that night for Mothica.
Right.
Mothica had like a release that we were hosting.
You lent your house
We were
for
hosting
it,
at
no?
our house.
Yeah.
But I remember we were so into the production and working on the
Your
production.
guests were like all downstairs and we were like burrowed away in this hole upstairs.
We were like in the studio while like people were in our house that we didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I just remember jumping around the studio. Like when Noah added those like Travis Barker drums at
those
the end.
drums are fucking crazy.
Yeah, when he added those drums, I remember just literally jumping around the studio.
Yeah.
And I remember some people from the party actually came up and were like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "We just wrote this song. You want to check it out?" They're like, "That's really good." And
Yeah, it was a nice little kind
if
of-
anything,
It was like nice confirmation for us at, you know, for a
Yeah.
song that we were pretty sure we loved, but you know, it was nice to have, in my case, total strangers come upstairs and kind of give us some sort of validation.
yeah, you don't usually get that in a session.
I very rarely have such a good feeling on like the day one. Like usually I'm like, every time I write, I'm like, I'm a piece of shit. That sucked. Sorry, I wasted everybody's time. And then like I listen to it like 80 times over the course of the week, and by the end of it, I'm just like, I'm my own biggest fan.
What was interesting about that is that obviously this song is pretty different from the stuff that I usually do, but I think we all connected with it on a level that made me want to do something with it.
Well, what is interesting is that like I think we were initially thinking about it for pitch, and then we were all just sort of quietly coaxing each other like, "Are you sure you want it for pitch? Like, are you sure you want to pitch it? I mean, I'm totally fine if you want to pitch it, but like, we don't have to pitch it,
Right.
If you don't want." Like, we were both sort of going back and forth, kind of like just sort of testing the waters, because we were all like, "This is a pitch song."
I remember even on day one internally being like, if she doesn't want it, I think we should cut it. Like that was my like, without even talking to you about it, that was my first. I was just like, I was like quietly hoping you would just be like, I don't care about this song, because I'm like, this is a really good song. Like I kind of want to do this. I want
Sorry.
to put out this song as Sleeping Lion song. No, but at the end of the day, I think we all reached the same conclusion
Absolutely.
as the three of us, that we wanted our names on it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was, so I performed it on a We Found New Music live stream.
Yeah.
You know, at this point, we're a couple months into quarantine. I think at that, like before that point, the kind of gist was, okay, yeah, I'll put this out eventually. And I think you called me after that live stream because you guys played the same bill. And you were like, yeah, that song it's good. Let's do it.
There were people who were texting me who were just like, "Yo, that song," not knowing we wrote it. There were people who like tuned in the live stream, or like
Right.
friends, even Grant, was like, "That song's crazy," and I'm like, "I know, I'm a fan of all of us," but yeah, it definitely.
I just think
hit.
it's an interesting song that kind of serves a different purpose to the rest of the music that I put out. Which
Well,
is
and
what's
I
exciting
really
about it.
liked your live from home too. Like I feel like, and I talked about this like in the We're Fine episode, but I feel like I love it when a song's production can be influenced sort of in a roundabout way by how it's played live. You know,
Right.
like I feel like there were certain, drum decisions or certain like instrumentation decisions and stuff that you did in the live from home thing. Some of which we kept in, some of it we took out, but like it was a different version of the song. And it was cool to hear that, to be like, oh, like we can go in various directions with this, which proved to be both a positive and also a very challenging thing over the, because we couldn't see each other.
Yeah. I think
So-
any joint release is tricky because when you're doing your own release, you have the final say in everything. If you don't like something, you change it. And obviously you have to compromise if you're doing a joint release. And that's tricky, I guess, even when you can be in the same room. But we were doing this, virtually after how many months? 5 months since the session.
Yeah.
So that was a tricky one. But
Well, it was
I'm
tough because there was
stoked with how
also
it turned out.
there were deadlines because of distribution and visas and like all of that stuff on the one hand. On the other hand, we were working on different plans. Like we were trying to get our record done and sort of juggle that. And on the other hand, like I feel like you and I are always just running around stressed, like getting everything like together and everything. So I remember one of my favorite sort of back and forth was because we're so direct, like over text, like
Right.
you're Londoner, I'm a New Yorker, like we talk in a very specific way. You were like, I hope you don't think I'm being mean. And I'm like, I hope you don't think I'm being mean. And we call each other, we're just like, oh no, we're just being direct. And I was like,
It's like, I don't want you guys to take anything I'm saying the wrong way. I'm just like, I'm not going to beat around the bush, like, and vice versa. But I feel like once we established that we were not, being rude to each other.
Right. Well, I was worried. At first I was worried. I'm like, does she think I'm an asshole?
Nah.
Like, am I being an asshole? Like,
No, but it's definitely tricky to come to those, to make those, final decisions about a song from, far away from each other.
Well,
That was
especially because like in this time you put out Hate You But I Don't and Lie to Me, which I fucking love that song.
Thank you.
And your sound was developing in this direction, but we were obviously still in the process of different plans and developing this sort of and evolving this new sound. So, whereas maybe we were closer together at the start of the song sonically,
Absolutely.
like we were getting into a more sort of grittier space. We were using more live drums and live instruments. We were using gang vocals a lot more often and a lot more prominently, whereas I feel like your style was sort of moving into this cleaner space. So it was like trying to like marry these two, which I think at the end of the day, props to Daniel for like,
Dude, Daniel killed it.
not only did he juggle the sonics of like a lot of stuff going on, but also like juggled and I don't mean this in like a negative way, but juggled our egos, like juggled these two distinct artists with distinct sounds that needed those sounds to be
Right.
respected.
Dude,
and
poor
did
guy.
it.
He's in Amsterdam, and I think we just kind of like didn't tell him that there was such a strict deadline because at the time we thought we had a lot longer.
Yeah.
And suddenly, the the final master needs to be in the next morning. He's in Amsterdam, out for dinner, and I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry, but we need this like tonight. And he's like, I'm literally at dinner, like I can't. And also he wasn't going to be at the studio that night. So poor guy drove back to his studio at like 2:30 in the morning.
I didn't even know that.
He drove back to his studio 2:30 in the morning to get us that master.
Well, even the cover art, because you were, your art was sort of more in the pastel range. Ours is obviously very dark, so we had to like
Right.
find sort of the marriage. Isabella took the photo, but we decided to go to our editing guy because we've been with him forever, Arif, and he's in Malaysia. So we were doing the time zone math for him.
There was just a
then-
lot going on with this whole project.
There was there's so much cool stuff happening in the production. Like I'm really happy with how like the gang vocals came out, all the harmonies that you got going through. It was really important that the snare was loud in the chorus because that's what was so driving about the demo. Like there was there were all these sort of elements that sort of came and went, and there's a little piece of air candy. But I think one of my favorite things that's like so interesting, but also was such a juggle, was we actually have two drum kits. One was the sort of splice
Travis Barker kit.
Travis Barker kit, literally panned hard left, and then the other one was Jacob performing live, panned hard right.
Which that was Jacob's idea. Like I was so skeptical of that. He was so excited. He was like a puppy dog. He was like, Noah, do this thing where you pan Travis Barker left and pan me right. And I'm like, okay, Jacob.
I'm like, this is gonna be ridiculous.
I'm like,
And
I will
actually,
try it
I
because
remember,
you're my friend.
I remember absolutely hating that at first because I was like, they sound so different that it's just, it's so confusing. And it just sounded way too busy and way too like messy for me at least. And then I think that was a mix thing, and Daniel mixed the drums differently and made them match up so much more.
Yeah. Well, it's also just like what I loved about it is like I grew up listening to like the Beatles and to,
Right.
like listening to a lot of classic rock, and because of like how things were recorded back then and the limitations of 8-track recording or 4-track recording and all that stuff, you actually had to pan the entire drum kit,
Right.
hard right or hard left. But sometimes what they would actually do is they would record the drums twice and pan one drum hard left,
One hard
and
right.
one drum hard right. But what you would wind up getting is sort of similar to what we have there is, you got Ringo doing two different, slightly variated drum parts in a stereo field. And so I remember when Jacob suggested, and I heard it before Noah, because I had the headphones on and I
Right.
gave Noah the headphones. And I was like, buddy, I hate to tell you, but it's cool. It's really cool.
Well, it's like, have you ever listened to Mr. Brightside wearing headphones?
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate it.
crazy.
I hate it.
It's crazy. There was just something that made that sort of punched it up and made that ending just that much more sort of chaotic and
That ending
lonely.
is huge.
It's so huge. You sound crazy good.
Thank you
Your
very
ad libs too are just like awesome.
Oh no, dude, that was fun to record all those end vocals.
It's fun for us to scream sick of being lonely.
Yeah, that was very cathartic.
I felt really bad because I was like, okay, I'm sending over my vocals, and there were like 30 stems.
Yeah.
I
Just
mean,
like-
I'd rather that than like two.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah,
No, that was
like you've
fun,
heard
though.
Butterflies. Like we like the vocal stacks.
Right.
That's our thing. But yeah. So that final night, I was stressed. I was like, there's no two ways about it. Like I had told our manager that we could actually get it in, and to tell the distributors and tell everybody that we were going to get it in like by the morning. And then I was like, wait, I actually don't know if we're going to get it in by the morning, but we'd already sent in the pitch form with a dummy link.
Okay.
So if we didn't have it, they would have had
something else.
the dummy. They would have had the dummy link.
But
Like,
we got
they
it.
would have just had. We got it. But I remember Noah fell asleep. You had something early in the morning, so it was just, and Daniel wouldn't wake up until midnight
Right.
our time. So
You were like, can you stay
I-
up? And I was like, dude, I've got to get up at like 7:00 tomorrow. Like, I'm not sure if I
like-
can stay up.
I'm like, Noah, Sophia, do you trust me? And you guys were just like, yeah, man, just like.
I tried to stay up, but at 3 a.m. I just passed the
Right.
fuck out.
So we were going back and forth.
I was
and
like,
here's-
if Daniel sends it by tomorrow morning and it's like the final mix and you've okayed it the night before, then I can literally listen to it at 7:00 in the morning and okay it. And he did.
Right. And I think I gave you my manager's number to be like, if
He
this
texted me
really,
in the
like,
morning.
if you want to, yeah, I'm like, if you veto it, and I texted Josh too. I'm like, if there is an issue here, you guys are going to have to figure it out because I'm going to be dead. And here's the thing is Daniel also had outboard gear for the mastering side of things.
Right.
So every time he would have to master it, he'd have to do it like he couldn't do it offline. He had to do it online, like real time bounce. And then every time I would get a master, I would have to listen in my headphones, on my computer, in my car.
Right.
And I remember I thought we had it. It was like 4 a.m. I'm like, we have it. It's good. It's done. And then I caught a reverb tail at the end. I remember we had all sort of talked about how we wanted it to end like really tight,
dry.
like
Yeah.
really dry, like not a single reverb tail after that stutter. So I'm like, Daniel, yeah, I know that this is like the 7th version with negligible notes throughout, but I need you to cut that reverb tail. And I think it wound up being, I think I wound up going to sleep at like 5 in the morning or like
I woke up.
5:30.
I think every time you were like, okay, this next one is the one, he retransferred me a master. I woke up with like 6 retransfers. And it was like final master. And then it was like final master 2. And then it was like final
Well,
master
it
4.
wasn't because like when we were doing the versions, I'm like, you don't have to send them every version, like because here are things that Sophia told me, here are things Noah told me, like
Right.
let's fix this, let's fix that. But then when I'm like, oh, this is the final version, I'm like, send it to my manager and send it to Sophia just in case just in case, again, I'm out for the count and that's what the one that they need to do. But then it wound up being like 3 or 4, it's the classic cliche of the final version.
Right. I broke all the rules and I okayed the final master from the speakers in my car.
No, that's great.
I didn't even listen to it on monitors or headphones. I was like,
no, but here's the pro tip for anybody listening to the song. I think it sounds the best out of any listening environment on Apple earbuds.
Yeah.
It is mastered insanely good for Apple earbuds.
Wow, I haven't listened to it in AirPods.
I've heard masters that sound great in cars and masters that sound great on like our own professional speakers or headphones, but I have never heard something sound so good on $30 Apple earbuds. If you want to know, if listeners you want to hear it in the best possible way, go cheap.
Cheap.
Hey, that's how most people are gonna be listening to it anyway. So
Yeah.
I think that speaks to Daniel's skill as a Sonics guy.
Daniel's a wizard.
Yeah,
I mean, since I met Daniel, other than like one of my songs, he has mixed and mastered everything.
I mean, he's done a great job. You have such a great
he has an
way he
awesome ear
brings
when
out-
it comes to pop as well.
Yeah, the way
for
he
sure.
brings out all of your Sonics is really impressive.
Yeah, he's a G. Shout out to Daniel.
Shout out to Daniel. What do you hope people will take away from this record?
Oh, that's interesting. I hope that it kind of makes people see my artist project maybe a little differently. I think the songs that I've been putting out, I love them, but they're all kind of upbeat, polished pop. I think it's nice to get a little, variation in there. I hope it's one of those songs that people really just take in every lyric.
Yeah.
Because that, I think, was, as we said, one of our focuses when we wrote it was, what are we really trying to get across here?
I think it hit me that when we started the record, it was a breakup song for me. It was, expressing a kind of loneliness after sort of losing this person.
Right.
But it's evolved, at least in my experience with it, to being this kind of love letter to an LA that we don't get to experience sort of anymore in this current, pandemic climate. It's a love letter to the things that I really
Missed
did
about
like
LA.
about and missed. I missed having that feeling of being lonely, being an exclusive feeling as opposed to something that we're all experiencing.
I mean, it started as, missing that one person in LA. And then it, evolved into missing every single person in LA.
Right.
Right.
I miss
So
dancing on Wednesdays.
It's like a whole other level of, I mean, when I moved here, I'd heard like 1,000 times, oh, LA is such a lonely city. I counted myself very lucky when I moved here because I had an awesome I had an awesome circle of collaborators, friends, everything. We went out all the time dancing. We went, we had a great time. And,
we were living.
Right. And suddenly it was like, fuck, this place is lonely because we literally can't go anywhere. This song is really a letter to Davy Wayne's.
It's a letter to Davy Wayne's and No Vacancy.
Right.
to dancing drunk as hell and then getting pizza.
Oh,
but
No Vacancy.
I think the other takeaway is I like that this song kind of is a mark of our friendship. Like we've written so many songs together in the camp,
Right.
And we've done, we've collaborated. We have this community and this group of friends, but there's nothing necessarily public that's like, oh, we were all here. We all did this stuff together. Now we have, a public collaboration. We have a public friendship.
Absolutely.
And, I think the world of you. Like, I think that we're all going to come up in
Likewise.
such a really cool way. And I love that this song can exist as well to be like, they were there and they were making cool music. And, and that friendship, created this project,
I'm happy it's out in the world.
What about, what do you hope people take away from it?
Honestly, this is a song. Yeah, I mean, I hope people connect to the lyrics, but I really hope people just like blast this in their cars. Like, I hope that people just I hope people just connect with this as a fun record because I think it's a fun record.
Going down the 101.
Yeah, I hope that people latch onto this just as a piece of music because I think it's like, we put a lot of time and care into like the sonics of it, and Daniel, obviously elevating it to this place. Like, I hope that people can just like listen to it and just enjoy it as a song.
I mean, my Spotify bio literally says making music to blast in your car.
Yeah. Which
I
we
remember
do.
actually at Berkeley once, we were in a class and that intro thing you have to do where you say your name, your major and what your goal is. And obviously that's such a difficult question, but I basically was just like, I hope that people absolutely blast my music in their car, and I hope that they enjoy it, incredibly. And the teacher was like, that's your goal. And I was like, yeah, if someone actively searches your song to play on full volume in their car, that means that they fuck with it and they love it.
Yeah, that's no small thing. Like it's a deceptively simple goal, because it's like
Absolutely.
not all music works like that, and not all music hits that tier for like the average listener. Like
Right.
it's a surprisingly difficult thing to make music that someone who doesn't know you personally and is your friend wants to blast in their car.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if you can pull that off, like that means you've made something genuinely good.
Right.
I think for me, my goal is for people to know this story. Not just the Lonely in LA story, but this broad community, and just to know sort of like what happened here.
Yeah. It's a very cool song to have out to kind of, like you said, just mark this time in like all three of our lives.
Yeah.
I just think there are like a lot of layers to the song which we didn't even really know existed.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because we've sat on this song for quite a while now that we've had time to kind of associate it with different things.
We've let
that
it
are
hit
happening
different
right now.
nerves, because different nerves have become sort of exposed
Absolutely.
in the process, which I love. Sometimes you write a lyric and it's like, that's a good lyric, and it means something then.
And then, 6 months later, it means something totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even bars in Echo Park don't feel the same. That was like going to a bar alone versus going to a bar with somebody. Now it's like, oh yeah.
Now it's
bars
like
in Echo
driving
Park.
past the bar
bars.
closed. Yeah.
Yeah. They very much don't feel the same because
Nope.
they're gone.
Oh,
Either that or
sad.
they feel like petri dishes, like when they opened for that one week, I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, you're crowded. This is bad.
It's insane.
Be
But one
lonely
day,
for a
one day
moment.
we will be back there.
One day we'll be back there. Well, thank you so much, Sophia, for coming back on the show. Thank you for
Thank
making
you
this
guys for
song
having
with
me.
us. And I hope everybody enjoys Lonely in LA. It was really, really fun to write, really, really difficult to finish.
Yep.
But it's a song that's evolved in quarantine to mean a bunch of different things. So
Absolutely.
we hope wherever you are, you're a
you
little
dig it.
less lonely in LA,
And if you're in traffic on the 101 by yourself, blast the song so we can be there right with you.
We'll be right there with you.
Be right there with you.
Oh. Well, thank you.
Thank you guys. Lonely in LA is out right now, so please go have a listen.
We would like to thank Alan C. for supporting Talking Lion on Patreon, and Isotope.